Happy ASMR Day, everybody. Hey, I'm kind of cutting it close to actually be able to produce something on ASMR Day within my own time zone, but I think that for other people I would still kind of make it under the wire, so I figured I'd try to accomplish something for today. It took a lot to talk myself into it, to be honest, because it's where I live. It's very hot right now, and we're trying to conserve on we're on power, but not using the AC yet, because we know we're going to run it a lot during the summer, and that means we're relying on fans, and I happen to be on the top floor where all the heat's at, so I had to convince myself to cut off the two fans I have going in here. But anyway, um, it's all for the cause, right? So uh, I'm not going to do anything that's outside the normal realm of what I do for the ASMR uh, videos. I'm just reading some more out of this Danish fairy tales book, which I swear I'm almost done with. I really am looking forward to getting done with it because I have something specific that I want to do next. Then have something right after that I want to do too. But that's all contingent upon me taking the time to read and upload. So I suppose I'm my own worst enemy. At any rate, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I hopefully this is not overly loud or underspoken. I kind of have the microphone in an awkward spot, and I don't want to talk so softly that y'all can't hear me at all. But I don't want to talk. I guess that's the way I want to say it. Yeah, I don't want to talk so softly that the mic doesn't pick up correctly, but I don't want to be so loud that it's lacking in whatever level of relaxation I'm capable of producing for other people. So, I apologize, I have kind of a cough. That's another thing that happens around this time of year. Sinuses make you do all kinds of weird things. Where I live, we don't get snow, we get pollen. At least we get pollen regularly. We don't regularly get snow. So, anyway, the story that I'm planning on definitely reading is called The White Dove. So, let's go ahead and get that ball rolling. There was once a king, and he had 2 sons. They were daring young fellows, and were always thinking up some new piece of recklessness. One day they rowed out to sea all alone in a small boat. At first they had fine weather, but after they had gone some distance a terrible storm arose. The oars were wrenched from their grasp, and the boat rocked like a cockleshell on the great waves, and was thrown about so that the princes could do nothing else but hold fast to the thwarts to keep from being hurled overboard. Suddenly they met a singular craft. It was a kneading trough in which sat an old woman. She called to them and said that she could help them safely to land if they would promise her the son to whom their mother the queen was about to give birth. That we cannot do, they both answered. He does not belong to us, and so we cannot give him. You may both rot at the bottom of the sea, for aught I care, said the old woman. I should think that your mother would rather keep the 2 sons that she has than one who is not yet born. Thereupon she rowed away in her kneading trough, while the storm howled louder than ever, and the prince's little boat gradually filled and sank lower and lower in the water. Then the princess thought that there might, after all, be something in what the old woman had told them. So they called out to her and said that she might have what she wanted, namely, their unborn brother, if only she would save them from the terrible danger in which they were. In a moment the storm abated, the sea became smooth, and a gentle breeze drove the little boat to the shore near the king's palace. The two brothers, however, said nothing about their promise, not even when the queen gave birth to her third son, a beautiful child. He was brought up and educated at the court of his father until he was grown. But his brothers had not yet heard from or seen the witch to whom they had promised him before he was born. One evening there arose a terrible storm, and the wind howled and shrieked round the palace, and at the same time there was a violent knock at the door of the youngest prince's room. He went to the door, and there stood before him an old woman with a kneading trough on her back, who said that he must follow her immediately because his brothers had promised him to her if she would save their lives. "If you save my brothers' lives, and they promise me to you in return therefor, I will follow you," the young prince replied. Then they went down to the shore together, and he had to seat himself in the kneading trough with the witch, who sailed away across the sea with him to her home. Now the prince was in the power of the witch, and had to serve her, and the first thing that he had to do was to strip quills. "Here is a pile of feathers," said the witch, "and you must have them all stripped by the time I return this evening, otherwise I will set you a much harder task." He began to work, and was doing well, when after a time a whirlwind suddenly arose and scattered all the feathers, so that he had to begin his work all over again. But as it was only an hour until dusk, the prince saw that he would be unable to finish his task before the return of the witch. All at once he heard a pecking on the window pane, and a gentle voice said, "Let me in, and I will help you." And there sat a white dove at the window, pecking at the pane. The young man opened the window, and the dove flew in and began to work at the feathers. Before an hour had passed, all the feathers were stripped. The dove flew out of the window, and a few minutes afterwards the witch came in. "Well, well," exclaimed the witch, "I should not have believed that you could have arranged the feathers so quickly. You must have nimble fingers." On the following morning the old woman called the prince and said, "Today I am going to give you something easy to do. Just outside the door lies a pile of logs which I want you to split up into kindling wood. It will not take you long, but you must be sure to have it done before I come back." The witch gave the prince a hatchet, and he began to hew and split vigorously, and at first it seemed as if he were making good progress. But he soon noticed that it was late in the afternoon, and the work was not nearly done. Then he was sad, for he knew that it would go hard with him if the wood were not all split by the time the witch returned. Then the dove came, and seating herself on the woodpile, cooed and asked the prince, "Shall I help you?" "Yes, I thank you very much for helping me yesterday, and for being willing to help me today," said the king's son. At once the dove set to work, and began to split the wood with her beak, and so quickly did she work that the prince could hardly remove the wood that she had split fast enough. When the dove had finished, she flew to the prince and seated herself on his shoulder. He thanked her, and stroked her white feathers and kissed her pretty beak, and as he did so, the dove suddenly disappeared, and in her place stood a beautiful young maiden. She then told him that she was a princess, whom the witch had stolen and changed into a dove, but his kiss had given her back her human form. If he would remain faithful to her and make her his wife, she could easily free him as well as herself from the power of the witch. The prince was charmed by the beauty of the princess, and was only too glad to do anything that she might wish in order to win her as his wife. Then she said to him, "When the witch returns, ask her to grant you a wish, because you have performed well every task that she has put before you. And when she consents, ask her for the princess whom she is keeping prisoner here, and who is to fly about in the shape of a white dove. You must, however, First wrap a piece of red silk about my little finger, so that you may be able to recognize me in no matter what form I may appear." The prince quickly wound a piece of red silk thread around the finger of the princess, and at once she was changed again into a dove and flew away. Immediately after that, the old witch came in with her kneading trough on her back. "Well, I must say you are quick at your work," she exclaimed in astonishment. Then the prince said to her, "As you are so well satisfied with my work, you will surely be glad to give me a little pleasure, and give me something that I am very desirous of having." "Certainly," said the witch. "What is it that you want?" "I should like to have the princess who is here, and who flies about in the form of a white dove." "Oh, nonsense," said the witch. "How did you ever get the idea into your head that there are princesses here, flying about in the shape of white doves? But if you really must have a princess, I will give you the prettiest one that I have." And the old woman went and soon returned dragging a little donkey. "Do you want this one? She is the best that I have." The prince looked at the little animal sharply and saw the red silk thread wrapped around one of her hoofs. Then he said right away, "Yes, I like her very much. Give her to me." "But what do you want to do with her?" said the witch. "I want to ride on her," answered the prince. "All right," said the witch, but instead of leaving the donkey, she drew her away. "What are you doing with my donkey?" exclaimed the prince. "She's mine, and I want her." "Very well," said the witch, and came back with a wrinkled, toothless hag. "Do you want this one?" said the witch. "You cannot have any other." "I will take her," said the prince, for he had seen the bit of red silk around the finger of the old woman. And the witch became mad with fury, and stormed and broke everything about her into pieces, so that the fragments flew about the ears of the prince and the princess, who stood there in her own beautiful form. Then the wedding was held, for the witch had to keep her promise. But first the princess said to her betrothed, "At the wedding banquet you may eat what you want, but you must not drink a drop, else you will forget me." But when the time came, the prince had forgotten the princess's injunction, and was about to drink a goblet of wine. His betrothed, however, was on the watch, and pushed his elbow so that all the wine was spilled on the tablecloth. Then the witch again flew into a rage and broke everything as she had done on the previous occasion. Then the young couple were led to the bridal chamber, and when the door was closed, the princess said, "Now the witch has kept all her promises, and henceforth we can expect nothing good from her, so we must at once betake ourselves to flight. I will put 2 pieces of wood into our bed, which will answer in our stead when the witch speaks to us. You must also take with you the flower pot and the glass of water standing on the window sill, and then we must slip out through the window and go as fast as we can." This they did, and traveled fast through the dark night, for the princess knew all the ways very well, from the days when she had flown about there as a dove. Toward midnight the witch went to the door of the bridal chamber and called to the 2 young people, and the pieces of the wood answered her, so that she believed the couples were in there. Shortly before daybreak she again went to the door, and the 2 pieces of wood again answered her, so that she thought the prince and his wife were there. And with the first ray of sunlight, as she had kept her promises, she could vent all the bitterness of her fury upon them. So the witch burst into the room, but found neither the prince nor the princess, but only the 2 pieces of wood. These she seized and hurled to the ground with such force that they were dashed into splinters. And when the first sunbeam fell on them, the princess said to the prince, "Look around. Do you see anything behind us?" "Yes," he said, "I see a dark cloud." "Then throw the flower pot backward over your head." When he had done this, a dense forest suddenly grew up behind them, and when the witch came to it, she could not pass through it until she had returned home for an axe with which to hew a path through the woods. Soon after that the princess again said to the prince, "Look around again and see whether there is anything behind us." "Yes," he replied, "the great black cloud is again behind us." "Then throw the glass of water backward over your head." And when he had done it, there was a great lake, which the witch could not cross until she had gone home to get her kneading trough. In the meantime, the fugitives had almost reached the prince's home. They climbed quickly over the garden wall, ran across the castle park, and slipped in through an open window. Now the witch was close behind them, so the princess took her stand at the window and blew down upon the old woman, and as she did so, hundreds of white doves flew out of her mouth and fluttered about the witch's head, so that she could not see where she was going. That made her so insanely furious that she burst into 1,000 pieces. Now great joy reigned in the palace over the return of the young prince and his beautiful bride, and his 2 elder brothers came and fell on their knees before him and begged his pardon. And after his father's death, the youngest son inherited the kingdom, and his brothers became his faithful subjects. Alright, y'all. Interesting story. I like it. I am going to go ahead and call it there. The next story is the dreams, and that's something that I need to start looking at trying to start doing dreaming. So I hope this might have helped some of you dream a little bit. Either dream as in, you're inspired in some way to read myths and fairy tales, or write something, or possibly just go to sleep. Hopefully it's relaxing enough for that too. But once again, happy ASMR Day, and y'all take care. Bye.